My name is Sarah Abel, and I'm an Eat Denver board member, programs chair, incoming vice president. My day job, I'm a partner at Baltz & Company. Thank you all for waking up early, coming downtown, being here. Thanks to my Eat Denver colleagues for creating such an energetic morning, especially the tireless Kristen Rao, my programming partner in crime, who better never stop calling me. My English teacher mother would be horrified about my double negatives, but Kristen, we love you, thank you. I am humbled and delighted to introduce our next speaker, Yannick Benjamin. He never ceases to amaze me or inspire me, and thank you for flying in from New York to join us this morning. In addition to well-deserved and hard-earned recognition from the Wall Street Journal, Bon Appetit, New York Times, Wine Spectator, just to name a few, Yannick is one of the most driven, intrepid, resilient, creative, groundbreaking, and community-minded people I've ever met. He's channeled his life-altering experiences to create authentic hospitality for guests of all abilities, whether it's offering adaptive flatware and wheelchair height seating at his fantastic East Harlem restaurant, Contento, to opening Beaupierre, a family-oriented and dog-friendly wine shop in the exact same Hell's Kitchen building where he grew up and is where his parents still live today. And if that's not enough, Yannick is also the creator of Wine on Wheels, an organization of wine lovers and somms who have come together to harness their love of great wines to benefit charity. In short, Yannick is an absolute fucking dynamo, and I learn something new every time I talk to him. So it's an honor and a privilege to introduce my friend, Yannick Benjamin.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here, and it's great to be back in Denver. It's amazing how things go full circle. I was just telling a story about maybe now 15 years ago, sometime in 07, 08, if I recall. I was injured in a car accident in 2003, and I had reached out to Bobby Stuckey, who owns Frasca Restaurant, amongst other restaurants. And I said, do you mind if I come and do like a 2-day stage? I'm in this situation, I got this car accident, and I want to get back on the floor, and I've never really done it on a wheelchair. My whole life prior to that was being a non-disabled person. And he immediately said yes, and it was the first restaurant that I actually served guests as a sommelier on my wheelchair. So Denver definitely holds a special place for my heart, and kudos to the Denver community and to the team at Frasca and Bobby Stuckey as well. What I want to talk about is virtue. And a lot of times we talk about virtue and how to live with virtue in our personal lives, but it is something that we can also do in hospitality and at work. And for myself, I learned about virtue. I went to a Catholic school for about 10 years on 51st Street and 10th Avenue, right in the heart of Hell's Kitchen. And I was taught by these crazy Christian brothers, and they talked about virtue, but it never really kind of sunk in. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I discovered stoicism. And I'm not here to preach about a religion, but it's a discipline and it's a philosophy. And basically, stoicism is an explanation to say that the good life is here. It's there for you. Despite any negative external forces that they may be, because there's plenty, we know that already. But stoicism is basically living in harmony with what nature gives you. And I wish I would have known about this a long time ago, especially in 2003 when I had my car accident, because there was a period where I was feeling sorry for myself. And instead of saying to myself, well, thank you for this obstacle, thank you for this challenge, and thank you for the first 25 years of allowing me to be able to walk, but now I'm ready for this next phase. Because in life, nothing is permanent. We are all on loan. And that's what Stoicism has taught me. But it's not easy. In order to get to that point, it requires a lot of work, it requires discipline, it requires a lot of repetition, and that's what I've certainly have implemented in my life. Stoicism goes back to the ancient Greco times. 3 main people when we talk about Stoicism is Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus. And how I came upon Stoicism was through a book called Meditations. I don't know if some of you have heard of this book. It's a journal that was put together, but a journal written by Marcus Aurelius, and he wrote to himself daily. And it was basically a journal of self-improvement. And boy, when I read this book, it forever changed my life. I mean, a lot of the things that he said in there were just so obvious, but why was I not practicing it, let alone practicing it at work, in the world of hospitality, in the world of my personal life? And then I started reading other books by Massimo Pigliucci, and I just completely went into this deep dive of Stoicism, and I have never looked back. So how do I implement Stoicism as someone with a disability, as someone who is a full-time wheelchair user, as someone who is married, has a mom and dad, sister, nephews, friends, and then how do I implement it at work? Well, first off, I'll start talking about myself on a wheelchair. I try to always focus on the things that I do have. I try not to focus on the things that I don't have, and I focus on things that I can actually control. So what would that be? In New York City, unfortunately, a lot of the metro stations are not accessible, and when they are, sometimes the elevators break, and that does happen quite often. So instead of feeling sorry for myself when the elevator is broken, I say to myself, well, I'm going to get on the bus. Sure, it's going to be a longer ride, but at least now it'll give me the opportunity to call my mom and dad or call any loved ones that I haven't talked to in a little while, send some text messages, and respond to some emails. On personal relationships with my wife, with my dog, with my family members, I have learned not to make it about me. And subconsciously, sometimes I realized that I was making it about me. But I realized that it's about listening, shutting my mouth, and listening to them. As Epictetus says, one mouth, two ears. I think it's a pretty good thing, to remind yourself of. Sometimes people, when they're going through difficult moments, they don't want to hear your opinion. They just want to be heard. And then the same thing with work. How do I use Stoicism to my advantage? Well, we know that there are so many things in restaurants, in hospitality, that are certainly beyond our control. Last week, we had someone who decided to break all our windows and break all our video cameras. Instead of losing our mind, sure, it was expensive and all that, what was in our control was, well, we're going to practice emotional regulation, okay? We are going to actually show empathy. Maybe this gentleman had a really bad day, clearly. Obviously, he has not been provided with the mental health resources that he needed. And so taking that approach is a lot easier, and then you realize, well, okay, it's not that bad. We still have some money that we can fix this. Luckily, we're covered by insurance as well. And so that's how just some things you can use Stoicism to your advantage. There are 4 virtues that we follow and we practice, and that's wisdom, that's courage, that's justice, temperance, and moderation, which is certainly a big one in our industry. And virtue is living in harmony with the world. That's all it is. And basically, it's being the best person that you can be. And for some reason, it wasn't until a few years ago that I fully understood what virtue is. It's not about just saying it. It's not about writing it down, but it's about living it. And wisdom is to know the difference between right and wrong. And that's an accumulation of life experiences. Having the knowledge of when to get something done. And some of you might know the Serenity Prayer, right? Which is a really, again, not going back to religion, so please, but God, grant me the serenity to accept things that I cannot change, the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I tell this to myself every day. And I don't know what God I'm really talking to, but I'm certainly talking to myself. I'm reminding myself that there are a lot of things that I cannot change, but there are certainly things that I can change. And I think it's really true, and it's an incredible statement. It's a powerful statement, and that's wisdom for part 1. Justice, morality. How many of you here, including myself, have been in a situation where we felt or we were complicit, where we have seen an undocumented worker in the same place that we're working at, and they're not getting paid their full 8 hours. They're working 6 days a week. They're being berated by their supervisors. And instead of just intervening, we kind of just watch or maybe not do anything. But that's an example of justice. But in order to get to justice, you must have courage. Courage to overcome fear of speaking up. A lot of times we don't speak up in situations like that because we're afraid to get blackballed. We're afraid of the actual ramifications. But to live a life of virtue is to take your years of experience, which is wisdom, implement them, because now you're identifying that there's something wrong, which is justice, right? And then now you need the courage to actually speak up. And you are ready to deal with any ramifications from that moment on. It's executing in action. Words can only go so far, but it's the action that's really important. And then finally, temperance and moderation. Not everything has to be a shouting match. Not everything has to be calling out someone, but I still believe in diplomacy. Calling that person over. Listen, I do need to talk to you. It's been bothering me because I see person A, they're really busting their butt. They're there 12, 14 hours, and it's to my understanding that you're only paying them 8 hours a day. What's going on here? It's not fair that I'm working 5 days a week. I get paid my 8 hours, and I'm being treated with dignity and respect, but I see that there's something wrong there. That's a good form of temperance. But then the other side of temperance and moderation is we're surrounded by alcohol, there's a lot of partying, finding that right balance, that right equilibrium. It's about what to do, how to say it, what to avoid, and what things not to do at all. And that's temperance and moderation at its best. Before I finish, I finally took stoicism to another level I'd say about a year and a half ago. It's just about the same time I had opened the restaurant Contento up in East Harlem. And despite that I was doing a daily journal and I was writing and I was doing my own self-evaluation, and I thought I was doing everything right, there was a woman, along with her colleague, they came to eat at Contento restaurant, table 16. They're having their meal, and unfortunately, the server was pouring ice water, and somehow he managed to pour ice water on her back. Now, you can imagine when you're not expecting that, it's quite shocking, it's not a very pleasant feeling, and she was quite upset. Luckily, it was just ice water. I saw the whole thing from just sitting by the host stand. I immediately went up to her and I said, I'm really sorry, I apologize, we'll make this up to you. I'm smiling, I'm doing everything right, I think, at that time. And she was infuriated, and she could not stop saying, well, now it looks like I peed on my dress. Now it looks like I peed on my dress. And talk about breaking away from the virtues of what I've been practicing up to that point. I immediately responded, after the third or fourth time she had said that, well, at least you have full control of your bladder. Well, it triggered me when she said that, because as someone who's spinal cord injured, I'm paralyzed from just below the chest, I don't have control of my bladder. So when she said that, but I made it about me. Instead, what I should have done was, well, maybe she's having a bad day. Maybe she just found out that a loved one just passed away. Maybe she got fired. Maybe she lost money in the stock market. But I made it about me at that moment. So I needed to do self-evaluation. I needed to take accountability. And unlike this quote that I always read to myself by Seneca, I am aiming to live each day as it is a complete lifetime. Well, I wasn't doing it that moment. And so I knew that I needed to write down things, and I needed to repeat, and make sure that I really became even more disciplined, because discipline now is freedom later. Always to live in agreement with nature. When you wake up, tell yourself that this is a gift. And when something goes wrong, tell yourself that this is a gift. So I had to repeat to that. No matter what, I knew that I was going out into the world and that there were going to be some obstacles. And when an obstacle came my way, just like that situation on table 16, I was going to be thankful for it, and I was going to welcome it with open arms. And what I do now is I practice premeditation of adversity. That's something that we do amongst Stoics. Premeditation of adversity is something that's really helped me, especially, and I urge you all who work in this crazy industry, wake up in the morning, give yourself some time, and just envision some of the craziest things that are going to happen in the restaurant. You know you're going to take an order, and when you put it in, the chef's going to come out and say, sorry, we're 86. Kind of infuriating, right? It happens. POS system goes down. The pipe breaks. People call out sick. There's a COVID breakout. You've put all that. Already you're starting to practice and you're starting to find solutions to these problems. So then you're really prepared. That's premeditation of adversity, and it's something that we can all practice for all of us that are in this industry. And Marcus Aurelius, and I'm going to just paraphrase because I know I'm running out of time, so I apologize. He basically says in one of his journals, and I practice this myself, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be ungrateful, they will be arrogant, they will be dishonest, they will be jealous, they will be surly. And they are like this because they cannot tell the difference between good and bad. But I will not be angry because we all have to work together, and to obstruct each other is unnatural. What he's basically saying is that we've all been on the other side. So we have no business judging, but we do have the business of finding empathy and really distilling it. Another thing that I practice before I go to work, being aware of my facial expressions. I know that if I kind of come in there like this, it's going to affect the staff, it's going to affect the ambiance of the actual restaurant and the wine store. Body language. Someone drops a plate, even though you think you're smiling, but you might do something as little as, or no one responds well to that kind of stuff. And tone. You might have one of your employees the day before, you just did a whole little seminar, and they ask you, I forgot, can you tell me what the grape on that wine is? And you respond back, but I just did that yesterday. Instead, just tell them what the grape is. Finally, a couple of my mantras. Stay calm, breathe, and keep pushing forward. Control what you can control. Focus on what you have. And something that I repeat to myself as much as I can, take the pause, take the delay. Not everyone needs to know your opinion. Not everyone needs to know your pure judgments. So the pause and delay is very helpful in situations where you find yourself where you're ready to explode. Just take the time, a few moments, and process it. Is it actually worth it? Stop complaining. Really. I think in this world we do a lot of complaining. I know I complain a lot, and honestly, it does no one good, and it certainly doesn't do you any good. I was ready. I woke up this morning. I had my dry cleaners all ready, and I found the stain, and come on, this is crazy. I'm going to let a little stain on my pants, move on, make things happen. And finally, stillness and silence is your best friend. We're in an industry where there's a lot of stimulation, grabbing you by the elbow, come here, come there, phone calls, text messages. And I want to leave you with this quote because I read it every single day. And every time I read it, I swear I get so emotional. And I actually have it on the front of the wine list, so customers can read it, but I don't know how many actually do. But it's actually from a movie called The Sound of Steel. And it goes like this. The world does keep moving, and it can be a damn cruel place. But for me, those moments of stillness, that place, that's the kingdom of God. And that place will never abandon you. So it's those moments of stillness, taking time for yourself, where you will find those answers. Anyway, thank you very much.